Mandingo fighting, as portrayed in Quentin Tarantino's movie Django Unchained, is a brutal and bare-knuckle confrontation between two enslaved African men, fought to the death for the entertainment of white spectators. It's a grim spectacle meant to showcase the extremities of human cruelty and the insidious nature of slavery. But here's the catch. There's no historical evidence that Mandingo fighting, at least to the extent shown in the film, was ever a widespread practice. Many scholars argue that Tarantino took creative liberties to heighten the horrors of slavery and to serve his narrative purposes. The term Mandingo itself originates from the Mandinka people of West Africa, known for their strong resistance against slavery. Over time, in the grotesque context of American chattel slavery, Mandingo became a racialized term tied to the myth of the exceptionally strong and hypersexualized African male. It was a stereotype perpetuated to both fetishize and dehumanize black men. The historical record does tell us that slaveholders would occasionally pit slaves against one another in wrestling matches, but these were not to the death fights. These would more often than not be non-lethal, though undeniably cruel contests meant for gambling and the amusement of the slave owners, not unlike cockfights or dogfights. The lethal blood sport, as it's shown in Django Unchained, largely fictional. It's important to frame Mandingo fighting within its context in the film, as a narrative device to explore the atrocities of slavery. Tarantino was not claiming historical accuracy with this aspect of his film, just as with much of his other work that leans into hyperbolic and revisionist history. Now, Django Unchained is a powerful film, to be sure. It sparks a lot of conversations about the consequences of America's original sin, slavery. Yet when we talk about the depictions of slavery in media and pop culture, we should always be aiming to discern the line between historical fact and artistic fiction. Django Unchained gave us a visceral, if exaggerated, window into the horror, but it's upon us to understand the real history, which is horrific enough on its own. The tragic reality is that the barbarism of slavery didn't need embellishment with spectacles like Mandingo fighting to be understood as a historical atrocity. The systemic oppression, the physical abuse, the separation of families, and the psychological terror inflicted upon millions of people provide a grim testament to one of the darkest chapters in human history, and that's a real fight worth examining and understanding, even today. And as someone answering from Portland, Oregon, a city that confronts its own historical prejudices and strives towards self-reflective progress, it's important that we seek to understand the full context and truth of past atrocities to never repeat them.